Women network emotionally. They know how to come together for emotional support. They have not figured out how to turn that into strategic alliance. Women at lower levels, they stay stuck.
Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Leslie Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Leslie as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions. Welcome back to Women We Should Know, the podcast where we consistently bring you the voices, the faces, the initiatives, the audacity and the ferociousness of incredible women, women who color outside the lines, who don't get into boxes that were created by someone else. And the most amazing thing about each one of these women is that as they are carving new paths, they are leaving a light on for more of us to be able to follow. And it is always my honor and my privilege to be able to sit and have conversation with each of them. Today, we have the wonderful Ungenita Prevost, and I hope I said that close to correctly. She aged out of the foster care system at 18, and she has seen and done it all. A former Hollywood body double, music video dancer turned award-winning female leadership expert, founder of the Feminine Global 500, and the first woman to lead a global feminist leadership network. This is an amazing woman that I am so pleased to have with us today. And how are you today, Ungenita?
I'm just cold, but outside of that, I'm great.
Yes, well, the UK went from blistering hot to freezing cold.
Exactly. That's why I didn't complain too much about the heat wave.
Uh-huh. But the cold's just not your jam.
It's I was born in New Orleans, so I'm a hot girl.
Yes. Ooh, New Orleans. Now that's a fun place. One of the fun places I like to start with every one of my guests is to ask, what has inspired you most in the last 24 hours?
Gosh, that's a good one. That's a really good question. I think what's inspired me the last 24 hours is I'm going to kind of give you a sneak peek. It's actually my app. I recently taken on this endeavor to create my own social network,
Mhm.
and I received a preview of this app, and it was an idea that I've had for so many years. And to kind of see this,
Mhm.
come to
Mm,
life, it
mhm.
just I almost brought tears to my eyes. I was really inspired and thought, wow, I'm actually doing this. So
Congratulations. Now, this is not where we were going, but we have to stay here a minute. Tell us a little bit about your app and what we can anticipate seeing in the not too distant future.
absolutely. So it's an iteration of the current Feminine Leadership Network, Fem 500. And when I originally launched the network, it was on Zoom, and I used other social channels to bring women together. But I wanted to have my own. And I wanted a place that I could actually create, like my house,
Mhm.
and
Right,
design
right.
and create experiences for women. So, what we've been able to do is keep the human contact in and
Mhm.
fuse it with a bit of the AI. So it's highly interactive, and it's just a wonderful space, and I can't wait to share it with women all over the world.
I hope I get an early notice.
You will. You're on the
Okay,
list.
good. I'm so pleased. You impact women around the world already. You are out there making tremendous change, carving pathways. In all of your work that you do with women and for women, what is the most challenging aspect?
Another great question. I think the most challenging aspect for me to understand is understanding that some people are okay where they're at.
Mm,
And even though you might see something in someone
mhm,
and you want to pull them up,
mhm,
you have to accept that some people are just okay with that.
mhm.
And
That's a hard one, isn't it?
mhm, mhm,
Oh gosh.
mhm, mhm.
Most days I remember that now, but it takes a while.
Yes.
Conversely, what is the most satisfying aspect of working with women?
The amazing women that I get to meet, just their stories, their experience. And when you bond with a woman, there's
Mhm.
nothing like it in the world.
No.
And I was on the phone with a client today and I just wanted to give her a hug on Zoom because
Mhm.
amazing woman, and she believes in me. She shared, my work with her network, and I believe in her.
Mhm.
And there's just something so amazing about that when women come together. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, you know, there's this facade. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
go there. There's this facade, women supporting women. This is a hashtag. I think it's been indexed probably half a million times.
At least.
And I often say what we do in private is just as important as what we do in public, because a lot of times
Mhm.
women in public, they want to start the marches.
Mhm.
They want to rally the troops. They want to go against the men. They're ready to fight, girl power. And then you catch them in the DM, or you
Mhm.
get them on the phone, or
Mhm.
you see them in the ladies' room.
Mhm.
And it's a completely different tune.
Mhm.
I'm like,
That's
wait a
right.
minute. Isn't that the same woman that was on stage and rallying up the troops?
Mhm.
So for me, I value when I truly connect with another woman authentically.
Mhm.
I love it. There's as a matter of fact, there were two girlfriends last night. I wanted to just reach out to because I was thinking about everything that they've done and how they've supported me, and I wanted to reach out to them
Mhm.
because there's nothing like it when another woman supports you
That's
and
right.
you support her in return. Nothing like it.
Nothing like it. And I'm curious how it is in the UK. I've done a lot of study and spoken a lot to the exploding incidents of woman to woman incivility in the workplace.
Mhm.
And the fact that this is just playing into the patriarchy.
Yes. Mhm.
As long as we are fighting against each other, they
Yes.
get to go along and never have to really address us fairly or with equity. Do you have a notable percentage or expression of that in the UK the way we do over here?
You know, I think it's the same,
Mhm.
but I don't know if that's the correct answer
Right,
because I just see the same things.
right.
I've gone to conferences in America. I've gone to conferences in the UK. I see the same behavior. I
Mhm,
think the women in the UK are more reserved.
mhm.
They're not as boisterous as the women
Of course.
in America. But again, when you get them in private, they have a lot to share
Yes,
about the challenges. Now, I'll tell you something interesting that happened to me. I chaired a panel for an organization called Win Trade Global. This was last year, and the UK Minister for Business guy by the name of Paul Scully. And he was on right before me, and he said that they wanted to triple the number of female entrepreneurs in the United Kingdom. And one of the areas that they wanted to focus on was helping women develop peer groups because they see that women don't
Mm,
have the support and networks that they need to truly thrive. And I
mhm,
found that really interesting. And I thought, okay, well, at least, it's part of their initiative.
mhm.
It's the
It,
government has noticed, right?
it's in the conversation.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah, that is a good thing. And in the way that you get to influence and you get to speak to women about leadership, is this one of your points of focus? Speaking to them about the power and importance of having female peers and female alliances.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
What would you, I would love to hear your perspective, your understanding from your very powerful place that you have built for yourself on gender equity, gender equality, and gender parity.
Woo! Okay. Well, Leslie, I want you to remember, I was aged out of the system.
Right.
And when I was aged out of the system, I had to get a job. And the
Mm-hmm.
first job that I got was actually working in retail. So I
Mm-hmm.
worked at Body Shop as a makeup artist. I worked at Macy's selling
Mm-hmm.
jewelry. I worked at Supercuts as a receptionist. I've had several jobs in my sort of earlier life. And
Mm-hmm.
then I went on to the entertainment business. Now, some might consider that a very sexist industry. And I was, an ingenue at the time, actress, dancer,
Mm-hmm.
very much, on display. And I loved it. Nothing wrong with that. That was a part of my life, very proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a body double. And when I became a body double, I noticed like I started to change. I was in my late 20s. I started to go, wait a minute, there's more to me than this,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into this whole personal development coaching business.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to see the issues
Mm-hmm.
that women who step up in leadership roles
Mm-hmm.
face day to day, because I started to face those issues.
Right.
Walking into a room as a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
walking into a room as, someone people consider attractive and maybe too attractive, and the judgment that
Mm-hmm.
goes along with that, the
Mm-hmm.
stereotypes. Are you able to do your job if
Mm-hmm.
you look a certain way? Like all of these things. And as I grew up, I continue to notice that there are a lot of issues. And we as women cannot blame men for all of our issues.
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
And for me, feminine leadership is about using your assets. When I say that, people go, "Ooh, what are you going to do?" I'm not part of Kim Kardashian's
Right.
initiative, don't worry. But when I say use your assets, men use everything they have to get ahead. They
Right.
use their social skills, they use their intelligence, they use their swagger, they use everything.
They use their whole everything.
Exactly. But for some reason, when we do, that's where patriarchal, comes to play. Because all of a
Right.
sudden, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I see
And
women
I
women.
I would say that I often find that women are the worst about that. Their internalized misogyny comes out and they're like, "Well, who do you think you are?"
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And so it boggles the mind, right? Because
Right,
on
it
one
does.
hand, right,
Mhm.
we say men are the problem, part of the problem. And then on the other hand, we are not truly supporting each other at the highest levels. And when someone, stands up and says, I'm going to be in my full glory.
Right.
I'm going to own who I am. I'm going to speak my mind. All of a sudden, the claws come out.
It's
The
just
B word, the B
it's
word.
just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And what is most oh, saddening to me is that when women do this, they do not realize that they are diminishing their greatest potential allies.
Exactly.
Their greatest potential allies, because women understand where women come from.
Exactly.
Mhm,
And I think a lot of women aren't conscious of it.
mhm,
I really do believe, because it's that programming. And someone said this to me. I can't remember who said this, but they said, think about this. Everything that men do, they do in groups. So
right.
football, right? Sports, it's the
Mhm,
group, it's the team.
it's team.
Everything that women do, it's always first runner up.
That's right.
Miss America, there's only one.
There's only one.
Miss USA, there's only
There's
one.
only one.
And it creates that
And
division.
those contests, let's just call it out, those contests were created by the patriarchy.
You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. And I think, again, it's women not utilizing it
That's
to
right.
their advantage.
Mhm. Yes.
Because like I worked in Hollywood,
Mhm,
and I had a choice,
mhm,
but I chose a different path.
mhm,
That was my choice.
mhm.
I leveraged it, but I didn't do certain things
Right.
because I didn't want to. That wasn't my path. I wasn't interested in it. No judgment, but I
Mhm,
leveraged what I could, what I felt comfortable leveraging. And I think every woman, whenever a woman is in a situation where you're in that sort of stereotypical arena, you
mhm,
have a choice. You can either stand up, leverage it, create something beautiful for yourself,
mhm,
or you can diminish yourself, revert back, and that's not going to drive anyone forward, you
mhm.
nor the rest of the women.
Absolutely. You're singing my song. Now, yes, there are so many women with internalized misogyny that are delaying the process of equity. But then there are those women who are out there and
Yes.
they're working very hard at it. And men, as a general rule, when they found a company, they'll get somewhere around 900K in investment capital. Women will get around 2,000. And I know part of your mission is to create a means to give $10,000 to a number of women to help them establish their financial growth. Where did this fabulous,
Well,
audacious vision
actually,
come
okay,
from?
so this is interesting. So there's three different gaps.
Okay.
Might be four. There might be four or five, but I'll focus on three. So there's the famous world-renowned gender equity gap.
Yep.
Everyone talks about it.
That's
You
it.
know, there, every initiative is really surrounded around that gap. Then there is actually the investment gap. And that gap is tied to, the whole Silicon Valley, culture where,
That's right.
they'll give men, $10 million for an
An idea that may or may not work.
and just an idea. And
Yeah.
a woman might have a business, maybe she's breaking even. It's a real business. I was going to say it's a good idea, but it's actually a business. She has a
Right.
product in the market, and they
Right.
go, you know what, we're not quite sure we want to invest in you at this
That's right.
stage. When you get to $1 million in profits, come back and see us.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue. And then one
Key.
of my favorites is the gender network app,
Mhm.
because it's the social capital that actually saved my life.
Mm.
I didn't know it at the time,
Mhm.
because I was sort of, working with my feminine intelligence,
Right.
intuition,
Right.
really leveraging my creativity, and I all that I had, people. That's all I had.
Mhm.
I had people. I
Mhm.
could just, stand shoulder to shoulder with people.
Mhm.
And that's how I got out of every economic issue, situation, money, shame, whatever. That's
Mhm.
how I got out of it. But I have these initiatives, Leslie. I have so many, like so many things I want to do. One is to help 10 million women build social capital and
Mhm.
monetize their networks. Like that is like part of the Feminine Leadership Network, Fem 500. Like that's our mission. And I have a journal, the Networking and Stilettos Journal. So I'm really hoping that that reaches millions of women. And then through the network, we reach, thousands of women. But I launched something called Funding and Stilettos several months ago because I know a lot of investors and I've been rallying investors to help fund female startups. So that's another
Mm.
project that I'm working on in the background,
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at some point I'd like to have the fund where we can actually connect women with investors. And it's time. It's time,
Yes.
because too many women go out of business because they don't have capital.
Mhm. Mhm.
And without capital, it's very difficult, and it's one of the reasons why I tell women you got to raise your social capital,
Mhm.
because you're going to need the social capital if you don't have the financial capital.
And ultimately, they feed each other.
They easily feed each other, absolutely, because
The more
yeah,
financial capital you have, the more important your social capital is, and vice versa.
exactly, and vice versa, exactly, because
Mhm.
it's who you know.
Mhm.
It's who you know, and who you know, and who knows you. I know that's a famous line, but it's really about who knows you. And I often say this in this whole social media era because a lot of women are focused on being popular,
Mhm.
and for me, it's about being profitable. Like focus on the real metrics.
Mhm.
The metrics that translate to money in the bank. That's it.
Right.
And I think women are being brainwashed into believing that, oh, all I have to do is show up online and be famous.
Mm-mm.
What is it? Less than 1% of women online will actually achieve that.
Mhm.
But what about the rest of us? What are we doing to secure our future versus
Mhm.
wasting our time online?
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. Now I have to go back to something because
Sure.
this is one of my pet
Pet peeves?
with women, my pet projects with women. Let's call it a pet
Sure.
project instead of a
Mhm.
peeve. But that is the severe state of women refusing mentoring. And one of the things that I found in my studies is that, and this makes perfect sense to me, having studied psychology, women don't network as well as men do in the traditional form, but they can outdistance men by miles when they do it from their own intuitive, their own internal brilliance, but they don't know how, and they won't get mentoring. The famous
Oh
Mary
my gosh.
Strutt,
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. This is a big topic because
okay,
I've lived and breathed this topic. Okay. So when I launched my Feminine Leadership Network, my goal was to, guess what, teach women how to network.
right,
Just simple, like you want to learn how to network. And women will say, I know how to network. I don't need that. They just want to show
exactly,
up to meet people,
yes,
and they're not prepared. They don't really have the skills.
right,
They don't have the confidence to put themselves in the right room,
mhm,
right? They
that's
they don't
right.
know how to strategize. And I'm not picking on women here. I want to be very careful.
We are not picking on women.
I want
We
to be very
love
careful.
women. We just want to
But
help
but
them.
here's what I witnessed. I've connected over 5,000 women, personally connected over 5,000 women. I've sat on Zoom over 100 times hosting this world-renowned event called Networking and Stilettos. And I would see women take my tips and they would get jobs, they would get clients, they would get introductions, like it just exploded. But there was a very small portion of women that came to the events and said, you know what, I want to go further because
Yep.
there's something here.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this conversation with Jay Kelly. I don't know if you know Jay Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote the book, Build Your Dream Network.
Right.
We had this conversation, and she said it's interesting because women will come up to you and ask you, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And and they want all of these things, but yet they're not willing to develop the skill sets. And
That's right.
see, that's the difference with men is men network strategically.
Yes.
Women network emotionally.
Yes.
So they know how to come together for emotional support. They have not figured out how to turn that into strategic alliance. And what happens is women at lower levels, they stay stuck because they don't have those social skills. And that's what keeps them behind. Because if you look at women who reach, executive level, women that continue to climb 7, 8, 9, figures,
Mm-hmm.
they have mastered what I call social capital networking.
Right.
They've mastered that
Right.
because they see the value of you can like I've seen this in my own life. Like Leslie, like I'm sitting here, okay, this is crazy. Every time I tell this story, I'm sitting here in England right now. And I'm sitting here in England because of a woman I met in Beverly Hills, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. like, it's that crazy, you
It
know?
is.
And I'm a Steve Jobs fan. Like I always say, I went to Steve Jobs School of Management, School of Leadership. And when he said, connect the dots in reverse, that's what social capital is. You connect the dots in reverse.
Reverse
And
engineering.
you go, that woman introduced me to this guy who owned a record company in Canada and told me to submit my headshot for a music video. But I kid you not, because of that music video, I sit here today. Now, there's all sorts of things that happen in between, but life changing,
Yes.
life changing. And so I rally, I hope that at some point we can take this to main stage, mainstream,
Yes.
to really like get the people, okay, behind us to
Mm-hmm.
say, you know what, ladies, you know, there's a difference between social networking and there's a difference between social capital.
Yes.
Kim Kardashian is going to teach you how to social network.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to teach you how to build social capital. Now, her strategy works for less than 1%. My strategy works for 100%.
Right.
100% of women.
Right.
So you decide, and that's my conviction
Mm-hmm.
because this is what changed my life.
Exactly.
Like
And the thing I want women to understand is you have to show up. This unwillingness. You said it yourself. They come in, they go out, they try the techniques, but they don't come back for the next step. Women are really bad at cheating themselves out of opportunities to go to the next step by not showing up for the next class, the
and
next
men show up.
Zoom, the next mentorship. So to all of the listeners out there, if you're jogging, you're driving, and you're hearing this and it sounds great, make the call, listen to the podcast, send a comment, and we will make sure that it gets all the way across the pond. But women have to reach out and start allowing themselves the privilege of mentorship.
And this is what I want to add, because I think going back to what we shared earlier about, when you do put yourself out there,
Yes.
you're going to be judged. You're going to be attacked. You're going to be critiqued. And guess what? You're going to be unliked.
Yes, you are.
And I think that's why women often hit the pause button
Mm-hmm.
because they're afraid. And
That's
and
right.
and that just wipes it out of them. And
Mm.
it's that disappointment.
Yes.
And I find I use this term dare to be undefeated
Mm-hmm.
because I think if you go in defeated, you're gonna lose.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go in to win and you lose, you still have fight in you for the next fight.
That's right.
And I've had so many difficult moments, so many just like, God, why me? Why didn't you give me a mom and a dad? And why don't I
Right,
have
right,
all
right,
these things? And what's wrong with me? And my life would be perfect if I had a mother and a father. My life would be perfect. But I didn't have that, and I had to find a way.
right.
And so I just say to women, especially when I see women and they have more than I do,
Mm-hmm.
like, you had a better start, a better foundation. So why not leverage your assets?
Mm-hmm. Well, we could have a whole nother conversation on the fact that if you hadn't had that particular foundation, you wouldn't be impacting the lives of thousands and tens of thousands of women to the positive, but that's another conversation for another day.
You're right. And I do believe that.
I do know you know that.
Oh, absolutely. But it's just that, when what like those moments when I was so defeated
Mm-hmm.
and I was so embarrassed and
Yes.
I just, to be a foster kid
Mm-hmm.
and people put labels on you and
That's right.
stereotypes and,
Mm-hmm.
it was tough. It was
Mm-hmm.
tough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we are all glad you prevailed.
I'm glad I prevailed. I'm glad I prevailed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I know all of you out there listening got some golden nuggets when you were listening today. So, let me tell you the thing about those golden nuggets. You may be jogging, you may be driving. Oh, that really speaks to me. And by tonight, you can't tell me what it is. Write it down. Just write it down, not while you're driving. Wait till you get in a parking place. Write it down. And then take that piece of paper, take it in your house or your office, and just randomly set it somewhere. This is a trick I learned a long time ago. It's a fabulous trick. You just set it somewhere. In a day or two or three, you'll come across it. You're moving those papers or you're getting ready to make a sandwich and it slid under the loaf of bread. And that's the moment that you can really sit with it. Now, why did I write this down? What did this say to me? What part of me was touched? And reconnect with that, rekindle it. And the more we take our golden nuggets and review them a few days later when they're not fresh, the more we get to internalize all this wisdom that we are receiving from these beautiful women who come on the podcast and share with us their stories and their brilliance. So thank you, Ungenita, for coming in and doing just that.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for having real conversations.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you too. It's the only ones I know how. It's the only ones I have practice with. I really
It's
do.
not easy. It's not easy to have those tough conversations, but I think women need to, they need to start stepping up and having those real conversations
Yeah,
versus the fluffy, feel good. Everything's great. Oh my gosh. Have those real talks.
they do need to have those real talks. And the thing I found, and I'm curious if you found the same thing, I find them easier. They are labeled as tough conversations because in the beginning, it's not the way we were trained. It's not the way we're socialized. We didn't learn how to do that. But when you just start having real conversations, it's actually easier because you get to be in the conversation. You're not worrying about which part of yourself you need to make sure stays hidden. You have to make sure you're not having to pay attention to what part of yourself you don't accidentally expose. So you are absolutely spot on. We must have real conversations, and I'll just throw in my 2 cents worth that after you do it for a while, it's actually the easiest way. Less baggage attached. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who are listening. Now, like, share, send a comment. What woman do you know? Maybe just one. What one woman do you know who would benefit from hearing this conversation? What one woman do you know who just needs that little nudge? Well, be a great woman friend and share this with her. You just don't know. We don't know when we might speak the right word or send the right video that's going to turn someone's life in a direction they didn't imagine and are excited to follow. And as you go forward for the rest of your day, please remember, you are stronger and wiser than you know.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you received inspiration for expanding your own social innovation and influence. Help us inspire others by sharing this episode and leaving your comments over at lesliemichaels.com/podcast. For more tips, insights, and support in creating a fully audacious, professional, and personal lifestyle you love, visit our Women We Should Know community on Facebook.